Greetings, everyone. Michele Granberg here. Welcome to Positive Energy, bringing enlightening television for your evolving soul. Life is a spiritual journey. Therefore, everyone has a meaningful story to tell. My guest, Chani Getter, was raised in an ultra-Orthodox Hasidic Jewish home, and at the age of 23, she found the courage to leave an arranged marriage, and as a single mother, she began a journey of self-discovery. Today, she has truly found her calling, serving others as a spiritual leader, teacher, speaker, and counselor. Wait till you hear her powerfully moving and inspirational story. Positive Energy starts right now. So, Chani Getter, welcome to Positive Energy.
Hi.
Nice to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
So you have a really compelling story and a powerful story. I think it's like a story of courage that I really personally find inspiring. You were raised in an ultra-Orthodox Jewish home and community, which led to an arranged marriage, and at a young age, you left all of that, as well as you came out as a gay woman. So tell us a little bit paint a picture of your upbringing and that story for us.
It was an extremely insular community. We spoke mostly Yiddish, although we did learn English in school, and sometimes we would sprinkle English words into our language, but it was a Yiddish culture. We shopped in groceries that had kosher food, our calendars were completely guided by the moon and the Jewish calendar, and secular days didn't really mean that much. I mean, we knew the date because we lived in America, but we didn't. I mean,
it's like being in a bubble a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Extremely insular, and we saw no newspapers, TV shows. Internet wasn't around at the time, but there was nothing from the outside world that penetrated this insular community.
So how did that feel for you? Did that feel like it was restrictive to you, or it was just all that you knew?
It's the only thing I knew. I didn't know any better or different. I don't know if it's better, but different.
Yeah. So what was the moment or series of moments that became sort of the impetus for you beginning to think outside the box a little bit, think differently, that led you to ultimately leave that community and that life?
So I think the last straw, kind of the thing that actually made me leave, is the fact that I'm genderqueer. And in that community, there's a very black and white world. The synagogue is divided by men and women. Even sometimes meals at people's homes were divided by men and women. Girls played with the girls, the boys played with the boys, and there was always this kind of divide. And even later, as I was exploring the outside world a little bit, but even when I began to explore maybe not so Hasidic, maybe a different kind of blend of Orthodoxy and even modern Orthodoxy, there's this mechitza, which is a divider in between in every synagogue, and I had to choose a side. And even now, where some modern Orthodox synagogues are becoming a little bit more open, you still have to choose a side. And I don't identify as trans. I identify as genderqueer, and so to have to keep showing up and choose one was not something that I could keep doing. Because that was the last moment. Yeah, that was like the last thing.
So that it got so uncomfortable, or just went so against who you were that you just couldn't?
It went against who I was, who I am. Right. And so like every time I walked in, I had to choose a side. And it's like, I'm not, and I'm not, and I am, and I am. Like I'm both, right, and I'm neither. Yeah. And so it felt—
I need a third option or a fourth option to that.
Yes, and there were none. And so I couldn't keep being part of that.
Gotcha. So you were young, and so how, looking back, of course, hindsight is 20/20, but how did you find the courage? What was the hardest part about that? What was your self-talk, I guess, like at that time that got you to that place?
I think that I don't think that I knew how courageous I was at the time. I really didn't. I was 23 with 3 kids. And I mean, now I think about it, my children are that age. And I'm like, imagine them with 3 kids as single parents. It's terrifying. But I'm really lucky that I have incredible inner strength, and I kept going inside, and I couldn't live in places where I wasn't true to myself. And so the uncomfortability of being not true to myself was harder than being uncomfortable and staying. And I say this about leaving communities, about people who divorce. Anytime I work with people, I always feel that it's when the pain of staying becomes greater than the pain of leaving, then that leaving actually occurs.
Gotcha. But it starts as an internal process. Obviously, I mean, I like to say that was almost your soul or your spirit sort of nudging you, talking to you, clearly coming through and saying,
It definitely
there's something else.
No. It was definitely that. It was definitely that. It was. You know, sexuality and spirituality are so connected, and we as a society, and I think because of organized religion, have kind of divided that. Mm. We have forgotten that our essence, our spirit, is also our essence, and that looks as gender or sexuality or whatever that looks like for different people, but that it's so interconnected, and when we try to divide that, we lose ourselves in the process.
Yeah, so, right. This is a spiritual journey, as we say, so it all falls within that context. Yeah. So if we're looking at it that way and we're saying there are no coincidences and this happened for a reason, looking back on it, what did you learn? I'm sure you speak of this when you speak to people individually and in groups. How are you better for it?
I realized that God could not be contained for me, that there was this incredible thing outside of self that had nothing to do with organized religion, and yet organized religion gives us fellowship, right? So there's like this, but what I learned for myself was that God couldn't be contained, and that spirit was bigger.
Nobody owns God, nobody has the rights to or a special connection to. We all have that same equal, beautiful connection that way.
Yeah. And the more we work on ourselves in that way, and the more we give it voice, the stronger it becomes in us, and the stronger we connect with others in that way.
Nice. So I'm sure all that didn't just dawn on you overnight around that time, like a giant aha moment. I'm sure that's something that developed once you were free from that environment and you had a chance. Was there a period of healing for you? I mean, I'm sure there was a transition. But how did you heal? Did you do something special, or was it more that relationship to spirit that helped you to heal from that, if there was any of that involved?
So I started therapy when I was 22, and I was still married at the time. And I think it was maybe a year or a year and a half after my marriage where like the incredible tension of that transition of leaving the marriage was done. And I walked into therapy and I said to my therapist, okay, so we're going to talk about God. And she said to me, I'm not a rabbi. And I said, I know. And she said, but this is therapy. We don't talk about God here. Mm-hmm. And I said, but this is my emotional journey. And she said, yeah. I said, and I need to talk about God through my emotional journey. So are we going to have this conversation or not?
Right. And it's not a theological debate. It's just your personal experience you wanted to share.
And I needed to figure it out. Yeah. I needed a place that would be safe to talk about it. And I remember we literally had like this back and forth for 5-10 minutes where I was like, she was like, yeah, but I'm not, like, this isn't what we do in therapy. And I kept saying, if you want me to be emotionally healthy, which is what your job is, then we need to talk about God. And that's how I kind of worked through it.
It sounds like it helped you to take on that role once you had done some of that healing. It sounds like some of the work that you're now doing, right? Helping people to process and understand more deeply their relationship to self and their relationship to the universe and to spirit.
Yeah, I mean, I think that sometimes when people hear what I'm doing, so I'm a coach, right? I'm a tradition coach, and I'm a spiritual counselor, and I'm a motivational speaker, and I'm an officiant. And so people say, oh, you do all these different things. And I'm like, it sounds like I'm doing all these different things, but really, I do one thing, which is enable individuals to find their spirit in whatever form that takes. And I help them be their best selves through it, right? So I create this space, and sometimes it's by officiating their wedding, and sometimes it's by creating a baby naming, and sometimes it's by doing a spiritual counseling session. Whatever it looks like, there's always the kind of the depth of it, or the core of it is, can we create space where we can talk about what really matters?
I know you're a graduate of One Spirit Interfaith Seminary in New York, so I always like to give them a shout out because it's a beautiful place.
Yeah.
And what a perfect space to learn and to grow and to find your path that way. But talk a little bit about your life now, just in terms of your personal life, your current relationship. You're in a happy, loving, blended situation. So say a little bit about that.
So I'm with a wonderful woman. We've been together for 8 years.
Nice.
Almost 8 years, right? We've been together for almost 8 years, and we live together. We have blended our families. So our two oldest, we say that we have 5 kids together, and we've each parented 4, but we've parented 3 together and 1 on each side. So like my son was already out of the house when we moved in together, and her daughter was in college when I met her. So, but the 3 younger ones we parented together, and so we have this. Now they're all adults, but when we when we met, they weren't. And
hard to say that.
Yeah,
they're all adults.
My youngest is off to college. It's just wow.
Yeah,
it's amazing. Sometimes I look back at my life and I wonder if that Hasidic girl who left at 23 and had these 3 kids she can barely manage, if I would have ever imagined this, if I could have even. I don't think I had even the words or the thought.
No, the maturity,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, the perspective. So you still practice Judaism. What's that like for you now? What is your practice like now, for yourself personally?
It's very different. So I actually say, when people ask me where I fall in, they're like, so do you consider yourself Reform, Reconstructionist, conservative? They have all these like labels. And I'm
names.
Like, yes, right? And so I'm like, no, I consider myself a practicing Jew, whatever that looks like. And it looks different and feels different every day. I love the spirit of what Judaism gives us, and the moments that we can create sacred space. So we just passed Yom Kippur, and it's the day that, traditionally, the story goes that Moses came down with the tablets and he saw the golden calf, and he was angry, and he broke the tablets, and then he went back up and he said to God, please forgive them, and he kept begging God to forgive them. And tradition tells us that on the 10th day of Tishrei, which is the day of Yom Kippur, God says, Salachti kidvaracha, I have forgiven them, I forgive them as you have spoken. And so we create this holiday of forgiveness on Yom Kippur. And so I love walking into that day and saying,
the essence of that.
Yes.
It's human. It's universal.
It's everything.
We should all, once a month, we should have a day of forgiveness, I think.
Yes, in a space where we forgive ourselves for all the stuff that we mess up in, because we all do. There's this beautiful story. Can I share a story? Beautiful story. And this Hasidic rabbi got up in the middle of Yom Kippur and he started singing this Yiddish song, which I won't sing right now, but it's this incredible Yiddish song that he starts singing, and he says, and he makes it up right as he's singing, and he says to God, I'm going to give you these 3 things. I'm going to give you, and it's 3 Hebrew words for sin, right? And he says, I'm going to give you all of that. Let's make a trade. It's Yom Kippur. Let's trade. And he says, I'm going to give you these 3 things. And you know what you're going to give me? And he comes up with 3 words for forgiveness. 3 different Hebrew words, again, for God to forgive. And then he says, and you think that we're going to have an even trade? No, this is not going to be an even trade. This is not like I'm giving you this and you're giving me that. You're also going to add health and happiness and health and prosperity and children. That's what he says. And it's this beautiful conversation that he has with God in front of the entire community. And for me, I was driving down here and I was singing this song, right? Because I was like, hey, you know, I have this hour and a half drive. I should be doing something. And so I was singing the song and I shifted the words because for me, those Hebrew words don't necessarily connect anymore. But what I was saying was like, God, I'm going to give you my ego and the times that I mess up and the things that I do when I think I'm right. Right? It's the same concept of how do we show up in ways where, imagine if we did do that once a month, where we forgave ourselves for those things and shifted our perspective.
Yeah.
It'd be nice.
We show up as the humans we were born to be.
Yeah.
You know? So I love that. I love where everything converges, and I love the essence that it boils down to in that way. So, you know, as we talk about spirituality, and you're an interfaith minister and a person of faith that way, what is sort of more of your main message around spirituality as it is beyond religion, really, and beyond tradition?
We all have it. Like it lives in each and every one of us. We are spirits personified. We are co-creators. And so we get to create and we get to connect. And I think my main message is usually to breathe. Because when we breathe, we remember. And I find that with myself and I find that with other people. Like we take a deep breath and
yeah, some might call that mindfulness, some might call that meditation, but
it's
taking a pause and connecting.
Because our essence lives in us. Everything else is trappings. Yeah. You know, there's this story, do we have time for another story?
A short one.
Yes. So this guy shows up to one rabbi and he says, hey, teach me the Torah, teach me the Bible when I'm standing here with one leg, on one foot. And the rabbi throws him out. And then he shows up to this other rabbi. He shows up to Hillel and he says the same thing. And Hillel says, love your neighbor as you love yourself. The rest is commentary. Right? And so when you ask me, like I'm standing on one foot, like what's the story? To me, it's about you're the essence of spirit. Remember that.
Beautiful. So if that's sort of, again, the essence or the main part of your message, what do you say to others in the LGBT community? I mean, is that your main message to them as well, so that there can be healing?
Yes and no, right? So yes, that's still my main message. And then I ask them to, because sometimes the healing that needs to happen is in fellowship. Because it's beyond personal connection to divine, right? The first step is to hey, who are we as human beings, as spiritual beings, and how do we connect to that? And then the bigger healing that sometimes needs to happen, whether they're LGBTQ or coming from a religious community like I did, then the healing that needs to happen is in fellowship. And so I'm like, you can have your own spiritual path and then find fellowships where you feel comfortable in. Because I think that organized religion is there because it provides such incredible fellowship. And so healing needs to happen there. And so I encourage them to find places where there is safety.
And is that part of your work, some of the work that you're doing with groups or as you go around or more one-on-one?
So I do facilitate a LGBTQ meeting in New York City once a month. But usually the work that I do with people is one-on-one, and when I work with them, I encourage them to do that. And the work that I do with people is not necessarily only in my office. You know, the beautiful thing about technology today,
this online world, the virtual world,
the virtual
can
world
reach people
is
anywhere.
Yeah, I have clients from everywhere,
right?
And it's Google Hangouts, Skype, FaceTime, whatever your medicine is, let's do it. And it just happens.
Well, I'm always pleased when people really do find their calling and they follow their bliss, and so your services, you're just so in alignment now with what it is that you're doing in every single way, spiritually and professionally. So I really acknowledge you for that.
Thank you.
So I know you were going to share a song, a chant, a prayer, a singing prayer, as is so common in Judaism and traditions, in Hebrew or in English. So can you share a little bit about that as you're going to?
Yeah, there's this beautiful prayer. It's in the morning. It's said traditionally every morning, and it basically says that the soul that you've been given, that you gave me, actually, the soul that you gave me, it's pure and holy. In Judaism, there isn't this concept of original sin. The concept is that we are pure and holy, and regardless of what we do, regardless of who we become, it doesn't matter, that soul stays. And so it's this incredible wording, and the chant is my own, though. There are numerous chants around that use those words, and so I'll start with the Hebrew and then do a little bit of the English. Okay. Elohai neshama shenatata bi tehorahi. Beloved, my soul, which you have gifted me, it is pure and holy. Elohai neshama shenatata bi tehorahi. Beloved, my soul, which you have gifted me, it is pure and holy. Elohai neshama shenatata bi tehorahi.
Beautiful, beautiful. So how does that make you feel when you're able to do that? Doesn't that lift you and elevate you to a whole other place?
Makes me remember who I am.
Yeah. Instantly.
Instantly.
Right? It clicks you right back
Yeah.
into that.
Yeah. Like everything else just falls away. The things that are happening in the world, both naturally and otherwise, and helps me stay connected and grounded.
Yeah, it gives you that direct internal experience. And we talk so much here around energy and vibration, and so that it's like that holds some of that high, really high, pure vibration in it. So is there anything else you want to say about the work that you do so that people might become interested in case they're on paths that really are parallel to what you've experienced? How can that happen for people?
You know, it's easy. They can call or email me, but
say something about the rituals or the ceremonies that you do, because that's such a great part of what you do as well.
So I create rituals and ceremonies for people who don't usually belong to a synagogue or a church, and also for many interfaith couples. And what I do is I really get to know the couple in a deep way, and we create a personalized ceremony for them specifically. I do the same thing in baby blessings and also funerals. I get to know the family and create a ritual where it's not just we're going to say these prayers and we're going to do these things, but rather who is this person and how do we say goodbye, right? And for a young child, who are these parents and the families that are coming together that this child is now connecting, and how do they want to be with this child, right? And so it's all about who are we and how do we show that in ritual? Because ritual is so powerful. In Judaism, we find that, I mean, the community I grew up in
ritual.
it's steeped.
Everything.
Every
There's
moment.
a ritual for everything. There's a prayer, there's a blessing for everything.
Yeah.
There's something, yeah.
And the reason that exists is similar to, like, I started singing and I went in, right, automatically. Ritual does that. If we do certain rituals over and over again, we go to that space.
Yeah. So there's something in the repetition of it as well.
Yeah.
That helps us disconnect from our analytical conscious mind.
Yes.
In some way.
In some way. And I think it's little rituals that we even don't realize we do.
Mm.
You know, when we come into the house and maybe we kiss our children on the cheek, right? It's just that kind of second. It can become rote, like any ritual can, but it can also be, oh yeah, I'm home, right?
Yeah, it's when you infuse intention and meaning behind it. It's like putting that in motion. It's like intention in motion, you know, in action that way.
Yeah,
and
ritual.
I think that's what makes it powerful.
Yeah, because ritual creates that. We create the space for it, right? By showing up to a wedding or a baby naming or really a rite of passage in some way. I've done ceremonies for people who turned 50, for empty nests, like a variety of rituals for individuals who want to create.
But why not? Why not mark the moment in a positive way? Why not?
Yeah.
Helps you reflect.
It helps us reflect, and it also allows us to be witnessed. And in moments of deep transition, we need to be witnessed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, life is so full of just the day-to-day kind of mundane stuff. I think there is something absolutely powerful about stopping and marking the moment and making it significant, and you'll remember it forever that way. Yeah. On our deathbed, that's what we'll remember, those heightened, meaningful moments where we created sacred space with people we love.
With people we love.
People we love. Especially.
Yeah. I think it's also, we'll also remember the things we did repetitiously, because we don't usually remember a memory as one thing. We remember memories because they happen so many times, they become part of our memory bank. And so that's ritual.
So, Chani, I thank you for the work that you are doing in the world and continue to do that. And it really has been a blessing and a treasure just to have you here. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
We're wrapping up another enlightening show. I hope we inspired you to reflect upon your life as a spiritual journey of learning and growth. Remember what I always say, you are a bundle of potential just waiting to be revealed. Reach out to me for mindset coaching. Thank you for watching, and join me next time on Positive Energy.